Monica and Sam, there's a gentleman in my Bangladeshi community. Nowadays, why I'm why I'm talking on these topics. There's lots of activities are going on by uh, Department of Homeland Security and ICE. Lots of people are getting picked up. Uh, they are, as a matter of fact, ICE call them and give them an appointment. People goes to the Federal Plaza and they hold him over there. ICE hold the people and they goes to the detention center and they end up in Louisiana or Texas. Nowadays, those example, those situations are taking place every now and then, early in the morning, middle of the night, middle of the day. Now, in Bangladeshi community, we have some attorneys. They're good attorneys, bad attorneys, bad attorneys. But there is one or two example. One of the gentlemen who claims he's attorney at law. His name is Moin Choudhury. His picture is this. He claimed that he's an attorney. So I checked New York State attorney base database. His name is not there. Moin Uddin Choudhury. I checked it. His name is not there. And then I checked Eastern District, I'm sorry, Eastern District, Southern District, and everywhere, his name is not there. So in one of my talk show last week, I said something that this gentleman, I didn't find anywhere that he's attorney at law in the state of New York, not in a civil court, not in a criminal court, not in Eastern, Southern, Northern, or Western District. So I'm going to ask Monica first, if someone is not an attorney, his name is not in a database, he has never represented somebody in a state court, Supreme Court, civil court, even landlord tenant court, and he put an ad on the newspaper that he's an attorney and he's inviting people with a criminal case, with a personal injury case, with any other cases, can he do that, Monica?
Not for any state you're not licensed in, because there is a process, and there's also a process for different courts as well. Like, for instance, the U.S. Supreme Court, you have to apply for admission, you have to be sponsored. There's a whole process there. Any state in the U.S., you have to take the bar exam. So there are some states where if you've practiced for a long time, you get to motion in, but you have to go through a process for that. You have to file an application. You have to pay a significant amount of money. So, for example, I'm licensed in New York and Connecticut. So I can call myself an attorney in New York. I can call myself an attorney in Connecticut. But I couldn't say I'm an attorney in North Carolina or I'm an attorney in California because I don't have licensing there. And I have not filed the applications. I've not taken the bar exam. I've not gone through that process to become an attorney there. So if I were to do that, what it is called is the unauthorized practice of law. And in many states, including New York, it's considered a felony.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question, Sam. Can the gentleman, Moin Uddin Choudhury, can he put an ad on the newspaper and television station and represent himself as attorney at law and taking personal injury case, criminal case, civil case, or all other cases? Can he do that? Can he put that ad in a newspaper?
No, and I don't have much more to add than what I'm sorry, I Miss
Monica Trombley.
Trombley. Excuse me. I think she just she said it beautifully. It's unauthorized practice of law. It's a felony in most states. I think in all states. And this guy can get into a lot of trouble if what you're saying is true.
Okay, another thing, he goes everywhere in a public meeting and places, he put this license, put this certificate, Supreme Court of the States of America. Now, he said it that he's licensed to practice in the US Supreme Court. He's a litigation attorney. That's what he represents himself. On this paper, piece of paper, there is an attorney named Howard Allen Glickstein. I called his office. In one of his motions, usually, some attorneys put other attorneys' names. It doesn't necessarily mean that he is attorney at the U.S. Supreme Court or litigation attorney. I myself and one of my attorneys called the clerk of the U.S. Supreme Court. and checked whether his name is there or not. And we find that his name is not there, nor he is the litigation attorney at the US Supreme Court. If he does that with the US Supreme Court, Monica, you're saying it's a felony in the state of New York. What kinds of crime is this that he represents himself, that he is a litigation attorney at the US Supreme Court, where he is not licensed over there either?
So I don't know per se the exact process they have with the US Supreme Court, but just because you're named as a plaintiff or a defendant in a lawsuit, or you decide to appear, or they approve you to appear in a status called pro hoc vice, which means for this appearance only, so one case, that's it, that does not mean you're admitted there. So I imagine the US Supreme Court has their rules, they have their protocol, they would have whatever they decide to do if you attempt to appear in their court and you try to represent yourself as someone licensed there when you're not. I do know that if you try to go to a court and you're not authorized to appear there, they simply won't let you appear. But I'm not exactly sure what their process is if you hold yourself out as, oh, I am admitted there and I'm not. I don't really know that process, but I do know that if you try to appear and you don't have pro hoc vice status and you are not admitted there, they won't let you practice. They will not let you appear. You would have to team up with somebody who is allowed to appear there.
Okay, Sam, if this gentleman put an ad in a newspaper or television station, now if the victim file a lawsuit against this gentleman and says, I'm going to include that newspaper and television station where he put an ad, that those newspaper and television stations should be held accountable, because those newspaper and television stations, they also have a responsibility to check whether the gentleman is a true attorney or not. Can the victim sue this newspaper and television station for publishing those false information and false claims? Sam?
I won't speak to that exact question. I'm not really sure, but I will say that there are a lot of these companies out there that will help attorneys advertise lead services, things of that nature. They'll check, right? I remember the first time I had to get on one of those, and they checked everything. They wanted to know where I was licensed. They wanted to know my bar number. They wanted to know everything to make sure that if I'm on there, I'm an attorney. And so there probably should be some sort of process that a newspaper goes through when a person is claiming to be a licensed professional of any kind, right? If I'm on there saying I'm a doctor and I need to take on patients, that's a problem, right? Because I'm not. And so if the same thing with saying you're an attorney, it's it can have some serious consequences. And if you're a newspaper and you're allowing someone on there to say that they're an attorney and they're not, that's a real problem. The question that I would have is, how did this guy show up in that motion? Did he show up as an attorney? And if he did, how did that happen? Is he an attorney perhaps in Bangladesh or in some other country? I know a guy from Pakistan who's an attorney, and he's not an attorney in New York. He's going through that process, but he does have the ability to say he is a I forget the term that he used for it, but he's able to speak to Pakistani law in New York matters. And so perhaps that guy is sneaking his way into these motions somehow. This is just a guess. I'm not sure, but possibly saying, well, you know what, I'm an attorney in another country, and I helped with this motion in some way, and maybe his name appears there that way. But if you're telling me that he's not showing up in any registries, he's not showing up anywhere, there's a lot of questions that I would have. But yeah, back to your original question on the newspaper, that could really open them up to some serious liability.
Okay. Monica, if the newspaper, without verifying, as Sam says, when Sam put his ad in a newspaper or TV station, they're taking whether Samuel Manrique is truly an attorney or not. Is he licensed to practice in the state of New York or not? or in a federal court or in immigration court. Now, in Bangladeshi newspaper, 95% of the newspaper put an ad about this guy saying attorney at law, taking this case, this case, this case. Now, if, for example, I'm a victim, and when I'm going to sue this guy, I'm going to include those newspaper and TV station. I'm going to say the newspaper and TV station are same way responsible because they're the one marketing a lie. Is it logical, Monica?
So I actually specialize in the entertainment space, so I have a little bit of familiarity with some of this. So I'll try to answer generally. So typically, if you have a newspaper, if you have a television station, you do not have the protections of the Digital Millennial Copyright Act. And basically what that says is if you posted something online, the host is not responsible for that. So say you post a YouTube video saying you're an attorney, you can't go after YouTube for that because they say, well, we don't have time to verify all this. There's so many users, blah, blah, blah. Same with Facebook, same with Instagram, things like that. But I don't believe that a news station, that a publication like that they necessarily have those protections. I believe they're exempt from that. But generally, the way it works with a lot of those entities is that they would have a department that's responsible for integrity. So say, for instance, a journalist is covering a story, they have to verify their sources. They have to go through vetting, a process. They can't just publish things that aren't true because otherwise that could be defamation that can lead to serious problems. So I would imagine that any company, if you were a television station, if you own the newspaper, you would want to do your due diligence. So you would want to have people on board that are going to verify the claims. If somebody's saying, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, you would want to at least go on the state website or wherever they're claiming their license. So if the person says they're licensed in Louisiana, you'd want to go to Louisiana's website, or you'd want to contact the state grievance committee in the state or whoever the licensing authority for attorneys are and see, are they licensed there? You'd want to contact the medical board. You want to engage in that kind of responsibility, because if you didn't do that and somebody got hurt, you could be one of those big pocketed parties that later gets named in a lawsuit when this person is injured, when they've lost all their money, when they have taken a drug and they've gotten sick, when they've had negligent care, whatever's going on. You might be one of those big pocket defendants that an attorney's going to say, you know what, they've got some money to pay you. Let's go pursue that. So from my take, working in entertainment, I would imagine that somebody would have a little bit of responsibility. They'd want to engage in that due diligence so their business is not going under later on when somebody says, hey, you posted this, it was false. I suffered.
Okay, I agree with you. Now, Sam, this gentleman also claimed that he is a Democratic district leader and he sells himself everywhere that he is a big leader in a Queens Democratic Party. Now, I checked it and I find that he donated good amount of money to the Democratic Party, so they made him district leader at large who do not have voting rights. He did not get elected by people's vote. He got paid money and become a Democratic district leader at large. When they called Democratic Party, Queens Democratic Party, I made a verification inquiry and they says, no, he is not a district leader. He's a donor. He gave money. We gave him some proclamation and he used that designation as his advantage, saying that, you see, I'm an attorney. I'm a Democratic leader. If you have immigration problems, criminal case, civil case, come to my office. Can a person sell himself, misrepresent himself, not only as the attorney, he is saying he's a Democratic district leader when he is not a Democratic district leader for election? Can he do that? Is it crime, or how would you describe his attitude or his activities? How would you describe it?
I'd say they're at least misleading, right?
Yeah.
Is it illegal? Again, not sure. I'd have to see exactly what was done and what was said. But if you're saying that he's calling himself a leader, a Democratic Party leader or whatever, and he's paid some money and they've given him some sort of an honorary or sort of title. now he goes ahead and uses that and kind of like misleads people by saying, well, you know, I've got this title and it is kind of true, but it's something that kind of like the example that I gave you earlier when we were off the air about people who the notarios, right, where they go into the Latin American community, they put up the sign. It says notario. People in Latin America, when they see a notary, that person is a lawyer in their countries, and so when they see the sign that says notario, they automatically think lawyer. They go into these offices, and that's misleading, right? That I never said I was an attorney. I just put notary sign outside. You thought what you thought, right? Same thing here. This guy is possibly saying, you know, I don't know specific language he's using, and that's really what it would come down to. What language is he using? If he's saying, I'm a Democratic leader or whatever, and he does have some sort of title that they've given him because of all the money he's donated, he might be okay. It's still misleading, but he may be okay legally. He's going and making up a completely different title for himself, and it's an outright lie, then he could definitely get into some trouble. But you know, will he get into trouble? You know, do they have time to pursue this? Are they going to pursue it? That becomes another story, right? How motivated will a prosecutor be to go after something like this? Probably not too much. So that's the unfortunate thing, is that a lot of people like this do fall. Again, if what you're saying is true, if a person is doing that kind of thing, they do fall through the cracks and nothing really happens. I've seen that happen a lot. You know, somebody who does something illegal or close to illegal, and they're never really held accountable because um, there's really no motivation from a prosecutor. You know, somebody higher up says, you know what, I don't really want to go after this case. So that does happen, unfortunately. But again, I'd have to look at the specifics of what he said, um, and what he called himself, and what title he actually holds. You know, so it all comes down to. But yeah, like you said, he's not an elected official. He's not. If he's saying that he's an elected official, that might be a real problem. Um, or if he's misleading people into thinking that he's some sort of elected official, when really all he is a big donor who gets a title.
Okay. Monica, just give me a minute. I'll be right back. I'm going to ask Advocate Kaji Abdullah Al Mamun. I'd like Monica and Sam, excuse me for at least a minute. I'm going to speak to Mr. Mamun in my country's language, my mother tongue, so that people can understand. Just give me a minute. Mr. Mamun, bhai, নিউ ইয়র্কে এক ভদ্রলোক যে নিজেকে দাবি করে যে সে একজন উকিল এবং সে দাবি করে সে ডিস্ট্রিক্ট লিডার, এই দুইটার একটাও সে না। আমাদের কমিউনিটিতে লোকজনদের মধ্যে একটা ফিয়ার মঙ্গারিং, মানুষের ভিতরে একটা আতঙ্ক তৈরি করছে এই ইমিগ্রেশনের ইস্যু নিয়ে, এবং সে অনেক কামাইতেছে, লোকজনের কাছে পার্সোনাল ইনজুরি কেস দিতেছে। আপনি এই দুইজন অ্যাটর্নির কাছ থেকে শুনছেন যে সে যেটা করতেছে এটা কমপ্লিটলি ইলিগাল। যে করতেছে উনি কিন্তু একজন বাংলাদেশি ভাই, উনি ওনার কোনো ক্ষতি করতে চাই না, কিন্তু উনি সবসময় মানুষকে এভাবে মিসলিড করছে, তাদের ক্ষতি করছে। এটার উপরে কি আপনি কোনো মন্তব্য করবেন? একটা লোক লিগালি সে নিউ ইয়র্কে বলতে পারে না দ্যাট সে অ্যাটর্নি অ্যাট ল, বাট হি ইজ নট অ্যান অ্যাটর্নি অ্যাট ল ইন দ্য স্টেট অফ নিউ ইয়র্ক। As Monica says, as Sam says, this is a criminal act, but he just keep continuously doing these things. He represents himself as an attorney. কি বাংলাদেশি বাংলা ভাষায় আপনি যদি এই বিষয়টাকে আপনার মতামত একটু দেন।
ধন্যবাদ জ্যাকব মিল্টন ভাই, আমি দুজনের বক্তব্যটা শুনেছি। আসলে এটা একটা সমস্যা যে আমরা নিজেদের কমিউনিটির মধ্যে অনেকে মিস রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন করে। হ্যাঁ, এটা বাংলাদেশেও দেখা যায় যে অনেক লয়ার, অনেক ডক্টর তার লাইসেন্স নাই, সে প্র্যাকটিস করছে। হ্যাঁ, এটা মানুষ জানে না, কিন্তু কেউ এটার বিরুদ্ধে কথা বলে না, এটা একটা সমস্যা। আচ্ছা, এখন যে জিনিসটা হচ্ছে যে দুই ধরনের প্র্যাকটিস হতে পারে। একটা হলো যে সে যদি বাংলাদেশে লয়ার হয়ে থাকে, আমি নিউ ইয়র্কে দেখেছি, ইউরোপে ফ্রান্সে আছে, যে তারা ইন্টারন্যাশনাল একটা ল আছে, কনভেনশন, যে তারা কনসালটেন্ট হিসাবে নিজের ল প্র্যাকটিস করতে পারে, কনসালটেন্সি করতে পারে, এই ধরনের একটা আছে। ফ্রান্সও আছে ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কনভেনশন ফর করসপন্ডেন্স, মানে দুই চেম্বারের মধ্যে প্র্যাকটিস করতে পারে যদি কোনো লয়ার চেম্বার যদি তাকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে, এটা একটা হতে পারে। আরেকটা ফ্রান্সেও আছে যে আপনি কনসালটেন্সি ইন্টারন্যাশনাল ল এবং নিজের দেশে করতে পারে। কিন্তু সে যদি একেবারেই লয়ার না হয়ে থাকে, কোনো চেম্বারের সাথে অথরিটি না থাকে, হ্যাঁ, তাহলে তো হতে পারে না। এটা হলো ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে যার যার বারে, যে প্যারিস বারে তাদেরকে করসপন্ডেন্স হলে তারা ইনফর্ম করতে, তারা অ্যালাউ করে। এখন প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে যে ফ্রান্সের ব্যাপারটা ডিফারেন্ট, কারণ ফ্রেঞ্চের ভাষা, ফ্রেঞ্চের ল জানার পরে আপনার লয়ারদের সাথে প্র্যাকটিস করবেন, তারপরে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করবেন, এটা এক ধরনের করসপন্ডেন্স, আপনার অনেকগুলো ফেসিলিটি আছে, বাট ইরেগুলার। আপনি আবার আরেকটা আছে, আপনি সরাসরি প্যারিসে বারেও হতে পারেন কনসালটেশন, দুইটা প্রসিডিউর আছে। এখন ধরেন আমি এই 2001 থেকে, আমি এখানে 2010 থেকে আমাকে ফ্রেঞ্চ প্যারিস বার আমাকে অ্যালাউ করছে। তো এইসব আমি অনেকগুলো এককভাবে গাউন পরে আমি প্র্যাকটিস করে আমি জিতেছি, বিশেষ করে ইমিগ্রেশন ল, যেটা কম্পাইল, আই এম অ্যালাউড টু অল কিছু করতে পারি। এটা হলো আপনার যে রেগুলার হিসাবে। আরেকটা হলো কনসালটেন্ট হিসাবে আলাদা করতে পারেন। তো আমি এখন রিটায়ার করছি, আমি একটু কাজের ব্যস্ততা আমি কম নিয়েছি। কিন্তু দুঃখের বিষয় হলো যে আমি দেখেছি এখানে প্যারিসে অনেকে লিগাল অ্যাডভাইজার কিংবা লিগাল কনসালটেন্টের অ্যাডভার্টাইজ দিচ্ছে, দে আর নেট এট অল, না বাংলাদেশের লয়ার, না এখানকার প্যারিস বারের সাথে কেবল সাথে নাই। কিন্তু মানুষ আর কি করবে, এখন ইমিগ্রেশন মানে জানে না, একটু একটু ফার্সি ভাষা জানে। তো আমাদের সেকেন্ড জেনারেশন অনেকেই এখানে ফ্রেঞ্চ বর্ন যারা হচ্ছে, তারা প্যারিস বারের মেম্বার হয়েছে।
মামুন ভাই,
যারা করছে তারা তারা ভুল করতেছে। আপনি যেটা বলছেন আমরা কমিউনিটির মধ্যে এরকম একটা করতে চাচ্ছি না, তারা অনতি বিলম্বে উচিত তাদের এটাকে নিজেকে ফলস রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন থেকে যেন নিজেকে প্রত্যাহার করে নেয়। ধন্যবাদ।
Okay. Monica and Sam, I'm gonna ask, just forget about this guy. I don't want to hurt him, but in a way, I think what is going to be your advice, Monica? He should come and put an ad saying that he is not an attorney in the state of New York. If he is an attorney in another state, he should say that. But he should clarify his position. He must not use attorney at law in the state of New York. What would be your suggestion, Monica?
So obviously people make their own choices. They do things or they're not going to do things. Some people will dig into their stubbornness very hard. But sometimes you might have to contact the grievance committee. I know like that's the authority here in New York that's responsible for those things. If you know the department the person is in, that's something that one might do. Although it might be helpful if you happen to be the person or somebody's there and they have a trusted relationship, or there's somebody that this person listens to, might want to say, hey, look, you're not licensed in XYZ state. And if you don't fix this, somebody can report you to the grievance committee and they will have words with you, and it will not be a pretty thing.
For example, if someone says that he is not licensed in New York, but he is licensed in South Carolina, he is licensed in Iowa. So if someone is going to call Iowa or North Carolina and make a complaint that one of the licensed attorney of this state goes to New York and claim himself that he is attorney over there, can someone file a complaint to that state?
So you can make the complaint to New York, but in fact, if they get a complaint in one state, that actually can affect your licenses in another state. I worked as a certified legal intern back in law school. And one of the departments they dealt with, I didn't personally deal with those cases, but they dealt with grievance matters. And in the course of dealing with grievance matters, I did learn that if somebody's licensed in multiple states and they have a red flag or basically have a complaint against them in one state, that can affect their standing in the other state. Because sometimes if a state says, okay, we're going to suspend you here, we're going to disbar you here, another state might say, well, we're going to suspend you, disbar you, whatever the action is, because this other state did this to you.
Okay. Sam, would you like to add something? That, for example, if this guy is licensed to practice law in another state, should people is going to file a complaint to the grievance committee of that state, or people are going to file a complaint here to the New York grievance committee in a New York state? Because If he is not licensed in New York, how am I going to make a complaint to the grievance committee?
So now that kind of changes things a little bit. If he's licensed in Iowa or in one of the Carolinas, like you said, and he's practicing immigration law because it's federal, there is a lot of room to maneuver there. So because those are federal matters, you can appear in in New York, for instance. If you're licensed in Iowa, you have your registration with EOIR and you can appear. So that is my understanding, at least. So that could change things, right? But if he's saying that he's licensed in New York and he's not, that's where he can really have a problem, right? And if he is licensed in another state, the thing is that he doesn't really even have to do that, and he should. There's no reason to say that you're licensed in New York when you can actually go ahead and please, Monica, if I'm wrong on that point, please correct me. But if you're licensed in any state in the United States and go into and register with EOIR, you can practice in pretty much uh, any other state as long as you're just doing immigration. Um, so that might put a wrinkle in all of this. Again, if he is licensed is he in fact licensed? Were you able to find anything in another state?
I find it out. He is licensed in Michigan, but if he is licensed in Michigan, can he take a personal injury case, criminal case, civil case in the state of New York? Can he?
No. But what he can do, and there's a big law firm out there that does this really, really well, and completely legit. The Morgan Law Group, I think it's called. They're all over the TV. They're the guys who do personal injury, and the way that he's set it up is that he has lawyers who are licensed in other states in the United States. I think they're in all 50 states. And the Morgan Law Group, I don't know the specifics of how they do it, but they're like a multi-billion-dollar firm. They're doing something right, and so they set it up so that they can take states, they can take cases in all states, and they have those attorneys. I've worked with other attorneys in other states. I have an attorney that I work with in Florida, for instance. I had a family case here in New York, where the woman had taken her kids from Florida to New York. We were fighting it out in Florida. The husband went and filed back in Florida, and I couldn't take the case. So I knew the case really well. And she couldn't find anyone. So I went ahead and reached out to an attorney that I knew in Florida, worked with his office, and then we worked together. He was of counsel to my firm in Florida, on that case. So that's how you have to keep it kosher, right? I couldn't just walk into Florida, and do that kind of thing because I didn't want to get in trouble in Florida. And by extension, as Monica said, I could get in trouble in New York if I get in trouble in Florida, right? Hey, this guy's out here saying that he's an attorney in Florida. Hey, New York, check on your guy because he's doing something wrong. And so that's why I went and that's why I have a number of attorneys in different states because of that. Because especially California, Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia. I have lawyers that I work with that I can tap if I have a problem, because New York and those states specifically, Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, have a lot of transplants from New York. So we do run into a lot of issues. I'll do quite a bit of family law. We'll have issues where one parent moves to Florida, but their are in New York. And so I need to find somebody who practices in wherever, Georgia or Florida, because of that connection that the states do have. People go down there for the warmer weather or whatever. Lots of people from New York originally are in Florida. So I needed that connection. And so but that's the right way to do it, right? It's to find yourself an attorney here in New York, make that connection with them and say, hey, I've got these cases. I need you to help me in New York because you're licensed in New York. I'll help you with anything that's going on in Michigan. I'm licensed in Michigan, and now you're good. There are other things that you probably need to do, but that's the big one, is to make sure that you've got another attorney in another state that you can work with. And so, but if he's out there saying that he's an immigration attorney and he does immigration work, and he's licensed in Michigan, he should be okay, as long as he's not saying that I'm licensed in New York. That's where.
But I understand if he is working with an attorney, but he cannot do that putting an ad on a newspaper claiming that he's attorney at law in the state of New York. That's a crime.
Exactly. If he's not licensed in New York, he's saying that he is. That's a problem. And the thing is that he doesn't even need to do that. You just say,
Okay.
I'm an attorney who does immigration work, and that is true. He is an attorney in Michigan. I know an attorney who's licensed in Utah, and she does a lot of immigration work throughout the country. So that could be something to look at.
Okay. Now let's go back. There is a lot of practice in our community. People go with the immigration problem. Now it is deportation case. There is some other cases. Now they go to an attorney, file asylum case, and also file when people are crossing the border, they are handing them over notice to appear. Now, taking $3,000, $4,000, they don't even filing G28 or notice of appearance. They don't file it. What they do, they fill out the form, ask the applicant or respondent, sign the paper and submit. Now, why couldn't do that? For example, Monica, you are an attorney. You charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and just what you did not file a notice of appearance or fill out G28. Instead, you fill out the form and ask the clients that you put your signature and you mailed it out. Is it legal?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, that would be that the person is helping the person with their asylum application. They've signed a G28, or was it that they didn't sign a G28, or they put a false?
They did not sign G28.
Okay. So what you can do is, if you're preparing that application, there is a form, I believe it is the EOIR 61, and you can simply say that you only prepared the paperwork. And that's if you're an attorney, or if you're a non-attorney, I believe it's a reputable individual.
I did not do nothing. The reason I'm saying, there is one victim. I'm showing you the name of the victim here. His name being mentioned, Kastabul Hasna. His name is not even correct. So this guy went to an attorney in our community called Ashok Karmokar. Now, when he went to him, they filled out a form or whatever they did, they submitted. Attorney information was not there. Now, ICE came, picked him up day before yesterday. Now he is in Immigration Detention Center in New Jersey. But when relatives or friends of this guy went to attorney Ashok Karmokar, there is no record in his office. God says, I don't know, I'm not representing this gentleman. But this attorney took $4,000 to $5,000 from this guy. Is it legal?
So if he took money and we did a form, now was the form submitted? Was he listed as a preparer, or was this just
no? He did not put his name anywhere.
Now, so he wasn't listed as preparer, didn't submit an asylum, didn't submit anything?
He submitted the asylum, but applicant filed that asylum by himself. Attorney Ashok Karmokar did not put his name as a preparer, or he did not file G28.
Okay, I definitely think that there will be a lot of questions from USCIS. And there will definitely be questions from USCIS. One classic example is if somebody's application is in English and you don't have an interpreter listed, and you say, I don't know a word of English, I can't read it, I don't have any knowledge of it, they're going to have questions about that. Or if you have an interview with them and what you tell them is very much inconsistent with what's listed in that application, they're going to have a lot of questions about, are you telling the truth? Do you even know what was written in here? What was going on? So I feel like that might be something that could trigger some red flags someplace. But based on, I won't get too much into the murky details, but it does seem like there's something off from what you're telling me. Something sounds off here.
And another thing, I received a phone call, at least 10 phone calls last night from this guy who is in a detention center. Says, I went to Ashok Karmakar's office, he's an attorney, really an attorney in the state of New York. He says, I paid $4,000, $5,000, whatever amount he told me, I don't remember. But he says, as I am being picked by the ICE, I sent my friends and family member to Ashok Karmakar's office. Ashok Karmakar's office says, he is not my clients. So why he does that, this type of attorney? They just don't want to get involved with the deportation cases. What is the issues? We don't know. But I don't want to badmouth attorneys, but on the other hand, I should say, if you're not a competent attorney, don't take this type of serious cases when people are in a deportation proceeding. You guys are charging $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, but they're taking money. But when people get caught, you just pull yourself out of the case. That's not nice. And if the family member go file a complaint against this Ashok Karmakar guy, I think they can file a complaint that why he did not put his name as a counsel, because they paid money.
I think it's certainly a possibility. I think it definitely depends on what did that retainer agreement say, which any attorney practicing this is law 101, have a freaking retainer letter, have an agreement. Spell these things out very clearly. Make sure your client knows exactly what to expect from you. They need to know what is covered, what is not covered, because there are attorneys who don't handle clients in ICE detention. There are attorneys who don't do that, and that's perfectly allowed. You're within your rights to do that. But you have to tell people that ahead of time. You have to be clear on what we're doing, what we're not doing. Like if it's just we're preparing your application, that's it, then you can do the EOIR 61, I believe, just saying, I'm here preparing the application. I'm not representing this person, taking on the representation in court. Some people will do the representation. They'll sign the G28. They even have something when you do the appearance in the immigration court saying, I'm representing them for all proceedings or custody and bond or anything that's not custody and bond. So there is a way to designate. But at the end of the day, it's very possible that somebody could go and file a grievance complaint. And if you were not clear on that and you didn't have the retainer agreement and your client paid the money thinking that you were going to represent them in court, that you were going to help them if they were in detention, and you don't do that, that can be a big issue. And Character and Fitness is going to wonder, okay, why didn't you have a retainer agreement? Why didn't you spell this out?
Okay.
You have to take that seriously.
Okay, Sam, we are okay. Sam, I'd like to ask you a different question. Different question is, if someone's relief application, means asylum application or some other forms of relief applications are pending with USCIS and is not in violation of anything, do not have any criminal history, do you think he is going to be okay, or still you think there is a possibility ICE may come, knock his door, and get him arrested, take him in custody?
That's a tough question because things have changed so much with the new administration, where it's hard to say, and I would say that it's entirely possible, and it's unfortunate because I do have a lot of clients who are afraid of submitting applications. They don't want their names in the system, and it really is sort of snagging things. I did want to say one thing about the previous question. I'm having trouble with my video. I don't know, and I do hear you, but I think you guys are frozen. Um, but as far as the not filing a G28, um, because I think this is important, an important distinction. If you're signing a retainer, as Monica said, um, I do a lot of what are called limited scope retainers. Sometimes people don't have a lot of money. I do need to get paid for my services. I don't want to get stuck doing a bunch of work that I can't get paid for. So I'm very clear in my retainer agreements. Look, I'm not going to, whether it's immigration or anything else, I'm going to do these specific things. I'm not going to go to court. I'm not going to go to a trial. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And it's very clearly laid out. This is what I'm not doing. This is what I am doing. The one problem that I do see with the example that you gave is if he's not putting his name as a preparer, and he is preparing it, then that's a misrepresentation, and so that might be a problem. But again, it does depend on what he put in his retainer and what they signed, if they signed anything at all. And maybe I do have a lot of people who are getting detained, and I say, hey, this is my price for a hearing, and it's like I don't have that money, and well, that's what I'm going to need, because if I'm going to submit my G28, now I'm stuck with this case, and I'm going to be responsible for going to court and doing all of these other things. I need to get paid for that, and if I'm not going to get paid for that, maybe I'll do something else that's less work, and not submit that G28, but not putting in not signing the form that says you're a preparer. That could be where one of the problems lies.
Okay. Monica, I'm going to ask you the same question. If someone, I already spoke to you in person, but still, there's lots of people, their asylum case is pending or some other relief applications are pending. They do not have any criminal background, but still, they're in fear. They don't go out, they're staying in the house. They're thinking that if they're going to go outside, they might be in trouble. Uh, Monica, I lost you. ওকে মনন ভাই, আমি ওদেরকে দেখতেছি না, ওরা যদি ব্যাক করে আমি ওদের সাথে আবার আলোচনা করব। একটা কথা, আমি ওদের সাথে কথা বলছিলাম। আপনি কি আমার কথা শুনতে পাচ্ছেন মনন ভাই? ওকে। আমি যে কথাটা ওদের কাছে আমি জানতে চাচ্ছিলাম, কারো যদি অ্যাসাইলাম অ্যাপ্লিকেশন পেন্ডিং থাকে, যদি কোনো রিলিফ অ্যাপ্লিকেশন পেন্ডিং থাকে এবং তাদের যদি কোনো ক্রিমিনাল ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড না থাকে, আইনত সেফ এই দেশে, কিন্তু অনেক সময় দেখা যায় কি রেসিজমের জন্য Sam, you are here. Go ahead. Hello, Sam. I think, Sam, you have to restart your computer. I think you have to restart your computer.
Yes. Okay.
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 Please restart your computer. Okay. তো মামুন ভাই, আমি যে কথাটা বলছিলাম, আইনত তারা সেফ। মানে কারো যদি ক্রিমিনাল ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড না থাকে, অ্যাপ্লিকেশন যদি ঠিক মতো ফাইল করা থাকে, ওকে দাঁড়ান। ওকে, Sam, I was asking that you are answering that time is different now. Even their application is pending, but still they can be picked up by ICE or they could be in trouble. If this is the case, then what the people should do?
So there's something called a pocket letter that they can ask their attorney to write for them. That
Yeah.
basically says, "Hey, I've got an application pending." Kind of explaining everything, so that if you do get picked up by ICE, you can, "Hey, I have this letter here." They may or may not, obtain it. If you're getting arrested, after actively getting arrested, they're probably not going to look at that letter and say, "Hey, you're free to go." But you could later say, hey, I gave this pocket letter, and explain things. I did have a client recently. She came in from India, and she was a green card holder, and they detained her. They detained about 31 people on a plane coming into JFK, and she was detained. She had not been my client previously. She had gotten her green card, I think, through her aunt or something. And she was held for about a day or two. And they, she was able to say, hey, I've got my papers. They had obviously seen that because she had come in, she had her passport and all of that. But she did get detained, and after a couple of days, it's not a comfortable situation. You're at 26 Federal Plaza on like the 10th floor, and it's not really designed to house people. And I've never been in there, but I'm being told by people that there is no beds, there's really nowhere to sleep, and you might be there for a few days. And so it certainly is an uncomfortable situation. You want to shorten the amount of time that you've got there, and if you can get your attorney to write you a pocket letter, then that could be certainly something that you should look into. My office does prepare these for our clients from time to time, when they have pending things and they're out of status. So you've got a pending application, you're out of status for whatever reason, that could be a way for you to shorten the amount of time that you have in an uncomfortable place, and hopefully not get transported to another facility. Like you were saying earlier, Louisiana, for whatever reason, is very popular. I haven't heard Texas yet, but Pennsylvania has been another one. Louisiana, Pennsylvania, I guess. Again, this is my understanding. I'm not sure why they do what they do, where they transport people, but I might just have something to do with where they have beds, where they have room. And Louisiana may have just been open for a while, and they were sending people there. And then I stopped seeing people being transported to Louisiana, and they were being transported instead to Pennsylvania. So that's, again, avoiding that transfer, avoiding being in 26 Federal for an extended period of time, or getting sent to MDC Brooklyn or something. That I've heard of a lot of people going there, and that's not a nice place to be. So just kind of shorten your stay. You could possibly have that happen with a pocket letter. So ask
Okay.
your about it.
Sam, I think I would need your expertise for our community people. There's a tons of people they need help. I myself, I'm not an attorney. I don't want to be an attorney. I'm a human rights activist. Being a human rights activist, I always seek help from my friends, those who are attorneys, those who can be helpful. So, Sam, thank you very much for joining us today. In the future, definitely you and me, we're going to talk on the other subject. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
কারা রইল বোকাপাট কারা রইল বোকাপাট ভেঙে ফেল কর রেলপাট রক্ত জমাট শিকল পুজোর ভাষণ বেদি ওরে ও তরুণ নিশান ওরে ও তরুণ নিশান বাজে তোর গলায় বিশাল ধ্বংস নিশান প্রাচীর প্রাচীর ভেদি কারা